Tonight I would like to talk about 5 factors that a yogi needs to have. 5 factors that if a yogi has them, she can realize Nibbana in this lifetime. The first of these is faith. In the text it says that to have faith in the enlightenment of the Buddha. And this is something that is not hard for people who are born Buddhists. They naturally have this faith in the Buddha, not necessarily because of knowing about the qualities of the Buddha, but because they are raised this way. This is one level of faith, but to know what the qualities of the Buddha are and to have faith in him because of that is a higher level of faith. And in the previous week, we talked about the qualities of the Buddha and the qualities of the Dhamma. That the one quality, special quality of the Buddha is this word that we recite, arahang, that he is completely pure. He doesn't do wrong things even in hiding, even when no one can see him. And because of this, he is worthy of respect. So when people know about the qualities of the Buddha or of the Dhamma, they have faith. And this is a higher level of faith than a level of faith where people don't really know who the Buddha is or what he taught. But sometimes it's hard for people to have faith in an individual. And for those who don't have faith in individuals, it's simply enough to trust that good actions, good speech, good thoughts bring good results, whereas bad actions, unwholesome actions, speech and thought bring bad results. With just this much faith, one can practice effectively. One should have confidence that doing something good brings a good result. Otherwise you won't do anything good. Doing bad brings a bad result. If we don't understand this, we won't avoid bad things. But this level of faith is enough to practice meditation and gain good results. The second factor that we should have is good health. Well, but nowadays disease is prevalent, and there's virtually no one who has completely good health. Most people have some illness or other. But if we wait until we have perfect health to do meditation, we will never do it. So we can't wait for perfect health. So according to what Sayadaw feels after he read the text, that one needs to have health enough to digest one's food and to sleep at night. If a person is that healthy, then they'll have enough energy to do meditation practice. Just enough to, digest your food and to be able to sleep at night. The third quality that we should have is honesty. The students should be open and frank about what he or she experiences during meditation. We in this system, we meet with the teacher, and then if the student can say what they experience quite frankly, it's very good. Otherwise, it's not possible for the teacher to guide the student. It's not easy. So this honesty, what this means is that a person should not pretend to have qualities that one doesn't have. Sometimes people say they focus on the rising and falling for the entire hour. Okay, it would be good if this were possible, but it's not. No. So a person just has to not be shy and just be realistic about what it is that happens in meditation when they report to the teacher. So to not pretend about qualities one doesn't have, and also not to pretend to have faults that one does have. So these two, basically a person is honest if they don't do these types of pretense. And pretense is very, very common in the world, but we have to be able to speak openly about meditation if we're going to get guidance. So just to explain a little bit about reporting, since some of the yogis are newly arrived, that here, as you know from listening to the instructions, when we do sitting meditation, the main object is the movement of the abdomen that happens when we breathe. So the first thing the teacher wants to know is, can you be aware of this or not? It's just very simple. Can you be aware of the movement of the abdomen or not? So if you can, then what do you notice about it? And if you can't, what is it that happens that prevents you from noticing the abdomen? Every time I sit down, I have intense pain. Something like that. You just have to say what it is that is happening that is preventing your attention being on the rising and the falling. So this is very simple, and there's no correct answer to give except for what it is you experience. That's all. And usually when we're sitting, thinking arises. Okay, so when thinking arises, can you note it or not? Can you note it? If you note it, then what happens? What do you notice about it when you note the thinking? It's the same for pains. If pains arise, then they're just something to be observed. So if a pain has arisen in your sitting, just to report a pain arose, I observed it, what happened to it, or I couldn't observe it because I was terrified. There's something like that. So you just simply say what the object was. Could you be aware of it or not? If you could be aware of it, if you could note it, then what did you notice? If you couldn't note it, then what was it that happened? You describe that. So this is an important part of getting the benefit of working with a teacher. So these first three factors, faith, honesty, faith, good health, and honesty. At the start of the practice, this is enough. If a yogi has these qualities, the more, if the yogi has a little bit of faith, a little bit of good health, and a little bit of honesty, then it's a little bit easier to instruct the yogis. It's a little bit easier to guide. Without these qualities, you can't really tell anybody what to do without their possessing faith, good health. Well, of course, you can't do anything about that. And then honesty. But when a yogi has these qualities in full, then they're really in shape for being taught. So this is what you need. This is all you really need at the beginning of the practice. So we all have some faith, otherwise we wouldn't have come here to undertake the practice, either through having some experience of our own, that knowing the benefits, or from having heard. In modern days, people talk about being able to use meditation to reduce stress. As the Buddha taught in the Satipatthana Sutta, the first benefit that he mentions is purity of mind. And yogis who've been practicing know this, that when we apply the instructions to observe the rising and the falling again and again, gradually we build up concentration so that the mind doesn't get scattered the way it normally would be, so that the mind doesn't dwell on unwholesome thoughts, but it just stays there, develops. With concentration, the mind doesn't go to either thoughts of wanting good things or wanting to see good things, hear, smell, taste, touch good things. It doesn't go to things that incite greed. And it also doesn't tend to go to things that arouse anger. So we gain purity of mind through applying the practice. as you try this, you will see for yourself. But if you feel like this is something good, if you hear that my mind can become peaceful and stable and free of the types of, things that make us feel unhappy, like feeling greed or feeling angry, feeling confused. If we hear about this and want to get the benefit, then, if we hear about this, then we'll have some desire to get the benefits for ourselves. And with this desire, we'll try to get those benefits by coming here and attending a retreat or attending classes in meditation. The fourth factor that we need is effort. And at first, we simply have to tell ourselves to keep on trying. We have to tell ourselves to observe the main object in sitting, the rising and the falling, to observe the movement of the legs as we make the steps in walking meditation. And we have to make a concerted effort to observe all our actions from the moment of waking up until the moment that we fall asleep. So at first we simply have to tell ourselves to keep on going. And this practice of satipatthana is a task that requires us to make effort to observe the arising object and to aim the mind every second of the time. Effort is the mental factor that gets the mind to the rising, to the falling, to whatever phenomena is prominent at the time. And aiming is the mental factor that makes sure the mind doesn't get there too early before the object has happened, or too late after it's already gone away. The mind has to get there precisely at the right moment in order to see clearly. So every second of the time we need to apply effort to observe the object, beginning with rising and falling, or the stepping and walking, and aiming. Mental power comes from continuity of observation. And on the other hand, when there are gaps in our mindfulness, when there's gaps in our effort and therefore gaps in our mindfulness, the defilements, the mental defilements such as laziness and so on, they have a chance to arise. There is a simile that highlights the importance of making continual effort to be mindful. And that is the metaphor of the narrow footbridge. So imagine that you have, in a mountainous area, there's a narrow footbridge between two mountains that goes over a deep gorge or ravine. And this footbridge is only wide enough to put down 1 foot at a time. So whoever crosses on this bridge has to put 1 foot down in front of the other. Keep on putting 1 foot down in front of the other. And put the foot down carefully because it's a very narrow bridge. So on such a bridge, each step needs to be taken with care, or else your foot may slip off. What this means is that each moment of our practice is important, just the way each step on the narrow footbridge is important. And if we have this attitude that each moment is important, then we won't lose our mindfulness so often. And when we do lose our mindfulness, we'll remember to bring our attention back to what we're doing in the present moment. So the meditators who are trying diligently to be mindful, they know when they have been mindful of something, and they also know when they've missed something. This is a sign of a diligent yogi. Whenever we find we've lost our mindfulness, we just have to bring ourselves back to where we are. Are we standing? Are we sitting? Are we lying down? Are we walking? We have to bring ourselves back at that moment. It doesn't matter how long we were gone. It's just as soon as we notice we're not with what we're doing in the moment, we need to bring ourselves back. And if we do this again and again and again, we will have fewer gaps and better mindfulness. And it will improve our sitting as well as our walking to pay attention each moment of the time during whatever we're doing. And another thing that will help us in our practice is to go more slowly than we usually do whenever we do things. And there's also another simile that expresses the importance of doing this, and that is the simile of the water cart. In the olden days, they used to fetch water at the riverside, and they would fill big jars with water and put the jars, like earthen jars, onto a cart to transport them back to home or workplace or wherever. And when going over uneven ground, a cart like this has to be moved very carefully and somewhat slowly, because if you move the cart too quickly, then the water will slop around and it will spill over the rim of the jar. And eventually, bit by bit, the water will be lost. And by the time you get back, you have hardly anything left. So in order to not lose the water that you fetched at the riverside, you have to move this cart very carefully over the uneven ground. And another simile also is of how we can lose our mindfulness and how we can lose our concentration without noticing it. I don't know if anyone here has ever caught frogs, but in Asia, people often catch frogs and then they put them in a sack. And they, take one frog after another and put the frogs in a sack. And then you have the sack full of frogs. So you have to hold this sack tightly at the opening. You have to hold it tightly closed. So imagine you're walking, you caught these frogs and you have a bag full of frogs there, and you don't hold on tightly to this opening. Then what do they do? Yes, Martin.
They jump out of the
they don't just, they might wiggle out. Yes, they jump out of the bag. They get out of the bag, and you don't really notice it as you're walking along. You get home, and you have no frogs in your bag. So this is what it is like when we lose our concentration. We are going, if we go too quickly, we don't notice it, but we can lose our mindfulness if we're not careful. So, and then when we get back to our cushion, of course, back to zero again. So we have to resume making effort to observe, developing our mindfulness, and building our concentration. So this is about how we need to go more slowly than usual and to be careful so that we don't lose the concentration that we've built up, the mindfulness that we've built up throughout our sitting or walking. And in addition, we have to make effort during sitting. In particular, I'd like to speak with how to work with pain, since some people may be experiencing pain, and I haven't talked about this yet during this retreat. So pains are quite naturally occurring in our body, and they're happening most of the time, pretty much all the time, but we don't notice them because we are busy with other things. We don't normally notice pain in our daily life. But when we meditate, we start to notice it. We have to remember that when we observe the arising object or the apparent object, we can gain true knowledge, no matter what that object is. And therefore, when pains arise, we should just observe them until they go away. We shouldn't hold on to the rising and falling and feel frustrated because, oh, this pain is here. I can't watch rising and falling because of feeling pain. We simply have to, if pain has arisen, this is our meditation object. So once it's there, we need to observe it until it goes away. In Vipassana practice, pains tend to arise quickly. In other types of meditation, like concentration meditation, it's easy to get pleasant feelings. But in Vipassana, it's easy to get unpleasant feelings. They tend to arise early in the practice. So, this is a fact. And one attitude that will help us is to just be patient and to observe so as to know the pain. How deep is it? Is it skin deep? Is it going into my muscle? Is it going into the bone? So we should try to just watch it. What does it do? What do we notice about it when pain is there? Does it increase? Does it decrease? Does it stay the same? Meditation is a practice for making the mind quiet. So it's a big support for the body to be quiet when we're meditating. So it's important not to just shift automatically, adjust automatically when we start to feel pain. That's why we have to develop patience so that we don't just shift in response to the pain. If we do that, it's very hard to build up concentration. But by observing it, by observing the pain when it's there, we can build concentration, and when the concentration is strong enough, this pain, you will start to see the pain disappear. Until our concentration is strong enough, then we sort of just have to suffer. But here are some ways to work with pain. So sometimes when we're observing pain, we have a lot of concentration, our effort is good, our concentration is good. So in that case, we can just keep on noting. We can keep on noting, and we can probably get to the point of watching the pain disappear. But we shouldn't have that in mind, of course. But when the concentration is strong enough, then the pain does go away. And this is like when we're fighting a battle and your side is strong. You have more weapons than they do, and you have more people on your side. So at that time, you can just attack. You can just go forward. And it's the same when you have enough concentration and mindfulness. Then you can just keep on noting it, and the pain won't bother you. And you come to see it disappear. So this is one possible scenario. But sometimes when you're fighting a battle, you don't have as many people on your side, and you don't have as many weapons as the enemy. So then you have to fight guerrilla warfare. So you are in one place and you shoot, and then you run to another place and shoot another. You keep on, you have to kind of shoot and run in that case. And when we don't have strong enough concentration, what we have to do is we have to keep on observing the pain as long as it's there. But it may get to the point where we don't really want to observe it anymore, or it's so at that time we can go back to observing the rising and falling of the abdomen, and this will give our mind more concentration, and it will give some relief from the pain. We have to, when we come back to observing the rising and falling of the abdomen, we have to apply a lot of effort, otherwise the mind will just go right immediately back to the pain. So we observe the pain, but then we make a conscious decision to come back to observe the rising and falling. And as we're doing that, the pain may call our attention back again. So then again, we have to observe the pain. As we observe it, because our concentration gets stronger and stronger as we observe it, the pain also gets stronger and stronger. When our concentration is still weak, we suffer from the pain. But we can return again to the abdomen, build up our concentration more, and then go back again to the pain. And in this way we can go back and forth observing the pain. Although our concentration is not strong enough, we're able to manage working like this. And it can happen that the pain simply gets stronger and stronger as we continue to observe it. And it may get to the point where it's unbearable. So then we have to, as we would do in battle, we have to do a graceful retreat. In battle, you can't just drop your guns and run. You have to retreat gracefully, retreat systematically. And with pain, you have to change if you get to the point where it's unbearable, then of course you have to change your position. But you should do so mindfully. So systematic change of posture is to begin with the feeling in the mind, the intention to change the posture, the decision to change the posture. And from that point, just to be as mindful, bring your attention as much as possible to the movements that you make to adjust your posture to get your body into a new position. And then when you're completely in the new position, close your eyes and begin to observe the rising and falling of the abdomen again. So I've talked mostly about the efforts, the factors the yogi needs to have in order to realize enlightenment in this very life. Faith, good health, honesty, and I've talked some about effort. And the last factor is to see the fast arising and passing away of phenomena. If one makes effort, one will come to see this. So for tonight, this is all, and I hope that you'll all be able to apply the instructions for the practice and gain the benefits that you desire, including all the way up to Nibbana. So that's all for today. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.